Hello, I'm Nathan Lewis, and this is the fourth episode of a series on the gold standard. I've written 5 books about economics, including 3 about the gold standard. Much more information about these topics is at my website, newworldeconomics.com. We can reduce all the myriad topics related to monetary affairs down to 2 basic questions: why and how. In our previous episodes, we discussed the classical monetary paradigm, or why having a currency of reliable, stable value is very important and beneficial. We also looked at the many reasons down through the centuries why other people have adopted the soft money or mercantilist paradigm, which aims at macroeconomic manipulation via a currency of unstable value or a floating fiat currency. Nevertheless, even if we accept why the classical monetary paradigm is superior, we must still be able to implement it effectively. Someone, somewhere, needs to know how to do it. Normally, we leave these things to experts. We know why we want to take a plane to Los Angeles rather than riding a bicycle. We leave the how of aeronautical engineering or piloting of the plane to experts. But it is also apparent that if this expert class has a bad history of failure, perhaps their planes crash for some reason, then we cannot take a plane to Los Angeles even if we would like to, and instead might have to ride a bicycle. Anyone with even a small understanding of economic history going back to World War I knows that the experts with responsibility for monetary affairs have a rather bad track record of plane crashes. That is why I had to write a whole book about how to do it properly, which was Gold the Monetary Polaris. But we can summarize here some of the most important points of that book. The first point is that although none of us can hope to gain a practical knowledge of aeronautical engineering without many years of study, understanding some basic monetary principles is quite easy. In a short period of time, a person can know quite a bit more about these topics than most of today's expert class. The basic problem to be solved here is to make a currency whose value is stable. In practice, this means stabilizing its value against some benchmark, commonly gold or some other major international currency. We saw in episode 1 that more than half of all the currencies in the world have an overt policy of maintaining a stable value with some international currency, usually the dollar or euro. They are not floating fiat currencies. You could hypothesize some kind of scientifically created standard of stable monetary value, a kind of statistical agglomeration, rather than relying on the historical stability of gold. But it is worth noting that nobody has actually done this in the last 100 years, not even as a white paper proposal, and certainly not in real life. The actual real-life experience of using gold as a proxy for this idealized stable monetary value has been so excellent that it is hard to actually find some kind of problem that some supposed alternative is aiming to solve. It is hard to find any evidence of some change in gold's value that was of sufficient magnitude to cause some kind of substantial, identifiable economic problem in the last 500 years. In the past, before the spread of paper banknotes in the West beginning in the mid-17th century, money was coinage of gold and silver, whose values basically reflected the market value of the gold or silver contained in the coin. Simplest way of fixing a currency's value to gold or silver was to make it from gold or silver. Over the past 3 centuries, paper banknotes, and today digital or ledger entries, have replaced coinage as the means of exchange. Much of today's base money supply consists of bank reserves recorded at the central bank basically as a digital record. Although the rise of cryptocurrencies has popularized the concept of digital or ledger transactional mechanisms, actually these are little different than the ledgers of paper on which the clerks of the Bank of England recorded transactions with pen and ink in the 19th century. Actually, this form of digital or ledger transaction predates paper and also coinage and can be found going back to the Temple of Ur in Sumer in the 3rd millennium BC. Ledger money is nearly as old as writing itself. The basic mechanism by which some manufactured object like a banknote or even an informational record is made to have a value fixed to some benchmark is basically this. When the value of the currency is above the benchmark, then the supply is increased by some means. This increase in supply tends to depress the value of the currency. When the value of the currency is below the benchmark, then the supply is reduced by some means. This reduction in supply tends to raise the value of the currency. The most common way to achieve this is to provide convertibility at the fixed parity rate. For example, a paper banknote or ledger entry is convertible to gold coin at the currency issuer, commonly a central bank, at a rate of 100 milligrams. We will call this currency the gold buck. Each gold buck is worth 100 milligrams of gold. Someone can deliver 100 gold bucks in the form of paper banknotes or a digital ledger entry and receive a 10-gram gold coin in return. Or they could take 10 grams of gold and receive 100 gold bucks in return. You can represent this in terms of price. Perhaps the market price of gold bucks is at 101 milligrams of gold. It is a little more valuable than the fixed parity of 100 milligrams. Everyone who wants to sell gold will sell it to the currency issuer, which is offering to trade for gold bucks at 100 milligrams, rather than the private market, which demands 101 milligrams of gold for each gold buck in trade. The currency issuer, such as a central bank, will create new gold bucks in this transaction in a 1-to-1 ratio with the gold bullion acquired. This new supply of currency will tend to suppress the value. We can see that if the market is still at 101 milligrams per gold buck, the process will continue and the base money supply will expand until the value of the gold buck falls to its parity rate of 100 milligrams. Perhaps the market price of gold bucks is at 99 milligrams of gold. Its value is below the 100 milligram parity. In this case, everyone who wants to buy gold will buy from the currency issuer, who is offering 100 milligrams of gold per gold buck, while the private market offers only 99. As the currency issuer receives gold bucks in return for the gold bullion it sells, the base money supply contracts by the equivalent amount. If the currency continues to sag beneath its parity value, this process continues and the base money supply continues to contract until the parity value is reached. This basic process is very common today and works very well. Crypto stablecoins such as Tether or USDC use this mechanism to fix the value of these crypto tokens to dollars. Tether Gold uses the same mechanism to fix its value to gold. Gold bullion ETFs such as the GLD ETF use this same mechanism, just as other ETFs such as those that maintain a value linked to the S&P 500 stock index use the same mechanism to fix the value of the ETF to the stock index. The shares outstanding of these ETFs, or the crypto coins outstanding, increase or decrease as the natural consequence of conversion at the parity price. It is an automatic system with no discretionary input or what you could call monetary policy. This is also how gold-based currencies in the 19th century maintained a reliable fixed value to gold. In his 1995 book, The Anatomy of an International Monetary Regime, The Classical Gold Standard, 1880 to 1914, Giulio Gallerati wrote, "The practice of gold monometallism is partly what has been known in monetary economics as a rule for regulating domestic money supplies. When gold goes to a premium vis-a-vis notes, rises above the par value, it means the money supply is too large and therefore must be held in check. When the value of gold drops below par, it means that the money supply needs to be increased." Gallerati here is using the common terminology of referring to the so-called price of gold. A high price of gold means that it takes more currency to buy gold, or that the currency's value is low compared to its gold parity. Unlike most economists today who merely recite something they heard someone say with little reference to the real world, the economist Edwin Walter Kemmerer actually set up functioning gold standard systems in several countries between 1900 and 1940, including the Philippines, Mexico, Guatemala, Colombia, Germany, Chile, South Africa, Poland, Ecuador, Bolivia, China, Peru, and Turkey. Known as the Money Doctor, probably no one else has been involved in establishing so many successful functioning gold standard currencies throughout the world. In his 1944 book, Gold and the Gold Standard, The Story of Gold Money, Past, Present, and Future, Kemmerer wrote, "When, under a normally functioning international gold standard, the supply of currency in any country becomes excessive relative to the demand, the exchange rates move toward the gold export point. The exportation of gold is evidence that, under existing conditions of business, there is a relative redundancy of currency circulation at home. The redundant currency is drained off largely in the form of gold exports. These exports are continued until the reduction of the country's money supply has made the monetary unit so valuable at home that further exportation of gold becomes unprofitable." Kemmerer is describing the basic convertibility function and how it directly adjusts the base money supply. In those days, sales of gold by the central bank, via the gold convertibility function, commonly resulted in gold exports. Today, this basic conversion function is most rigorously applied in the case of currency boards. A currency board maintains the fixed value, or exchange rate, between one currency and another. It is very similar to a crypto stablecoin such as Tether. It works basically the same way as Gallerati and Kemmerer described. The economist Steve Hanke has been active in establishing several currency boards, including ones used in Argentina, Bulgaria, Estonia, Lithuania, and Bosnia. In 2018, Hanke described, "By design, a currency board has no discretionary monetary powers and cannot engage in the fiduciary issue of money. It has an exchange rate policy, the exchange rate is fixed, but no monetary policy. A currency board's operations are passive and automatic. The sole function of a currency board is to exchange the domestic currency it issues for an anchor currency at a fixed rate. Consequently, the quantity of domestic currency in circulation is determined solely by market forces, namely the demand for domestic currency. Hankey continued. The first one was installed in the British Indian Ocean colony of Mauritius in 1849. By the 1930s, currency boards were widespread among the British colonies in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and the Pacific Islands. They have also existed in a number of independent countries and city-states such as Danzig and Singapore. One of the more interesting currency boards was installed in North Russia on November 11, 1918, during the Civil War. Its architect was John Maynard Keynes, a British Treasury official responsible for war finance at the time. At present, the following countries use orthodox currency boards: Bermuda, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Brunei, Bulgaria, the Cayman Islands, Djibouti, the Falkland Islands, Gibraltar, Guernsey, Hong Kong, the Isle of Man, Jersey, Lithuania, Macau, and St. Helena. None of the modern currency boards has failed to maintain convertibility at their fixed exchange rate. Indeed, no currency board has ever failed, and this includes Keynes's Russian currency board. The so-called Russian ruble never deviated from its fixed exchange rate with the British pound. The board continued to redeem rubles for pounds in London until 1920, well after the Civil War had concluded. Here we see that, even in the case of being on the losing side of the Russian Civil War, a properly managed fixed value system is extremely reliable. Of course, much rides on this short phrase, properly managed. We know that many fixed value currency policies have failed, with the most significant being the failure of the United States fixed $35 an ounce gold parity in August of 1971. In our next episode, we will look at the common modes of failure for fixed value currency systems.